Okay, and welcome. Hello to those joining me for
a while, but
this
it's time for this
stream.
to
I'm
come
not
alive.
sure how many will
We are.
actually tune
I
in. I don't really
I
stream that
expect that this will
often.
be a
Probably
unanimous
should.
vote,
I've always
and
thought
it will
about
reflect
making
what I
a
think every member in this chamber, and
actual
I'll say this
podcast.
now, at least in recent
But here
days,
we are,
every
and we
member
are
of the chamber
covering
on the Democrat
the
side, they didn't say anything for 4
Epstein
years, but their
Files vote.
information was
Now, right
transparency now,
now,
and so
we've
is
had a
this
few
side. But
speakers,
we
and
want to
I've
do it
been
in a
watching them.
respectful and
Um,
careful manner so that we don't subject
but
innocent people
they've
to
kind
further
of
harm.
been
And that has been the whole thing. I told all my
silly. I
members
mean,
today I'll be
Mike
voting
Johnson,
yes
the
on this.
speaker, we'll
I
listen to him in
suspect
a
almost
second here.
everyone will. I
But
sent it to the
I
Senate
wanted to
with
tune
courage.
in
Thank you for the time, Mr.
briefly.
Speaker. I yield
Let
back.
me just do one thing real quick.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is
So that I could
I'm yielding to Mr. Gomez for the sole
kind of
purpose of making a
retort
parliamentary
and
inquiry.
respond to some of the misinformation that's being
Mr.
conveyed here.
Speaker, I rise,
And I just
to
really
ask a point of
think it's
parliamentary
important for
inquiry.
people
Is this an
to
appropriate time to point out that the
be aware of the
Republicans named children
facts. I mean,
savings
basically
account
what's
for their
happening, just
so-called One
as
Big
is usually the
Beautiful Bill
case
after Donald Trump,
in
someone
Congress.
connected to one of the most
Gentleman has not
notorious
stated
pedophiles
a
in this country,
parliamentary
or
inquiry.
that the Speaker
The
of the
gentleman
House
will
Hang on.
just lied on the floor by stating that there was
gentleman
protection,
will
Getting
there is
spicy.
protections for the victims in the Epstein bill.
The gentleman is no longer recognized. The gentleman from Maryland, you are recognized.
I am prepared to close. I've got no more speakers on my side.
The gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll listen to the closing arguments here. I just want to say, though, the Republicans are acting all like, oh, we support this now. You know, let's just remember the history of this issue. First of all, even though Donald Trump ran and his, little minions ran on the idea of releasing the Epstein Files,
30 seconds.
When he gets into office, he doesn't release them. They do this kind of fake
15
news
seconds.
conference where they bring out binders of previously released materials and claim they're releasing the Epstein Files. And then Donald Trump goes fucking crazy and he starts saying, "No, you don't release the files. It's a hoax." And Donald Trump keeps calling it a Democratic hoax. And then, for a while there was no action. Then finally, the Democrats who have been urging the release of the files got involved, and then this other Republican, Brad Massey, along with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace, got involved and came together for, sorry for the ad, I need to work on that. They came together for a discharge petition, and they basically came together in a majority, voted to release it, and then, or that's what they're doing now. But during this whole time, Donald Trump has been using the power of the presidency to try to make people not vote for it up until this weekend. Now, but even before the weekend, he brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room to try to pressure her not to vote for it. And she, he's been yelling at Marjorie Taylor Greene, calling her a traitor and all this other stuff. But he then reversed course because he knew he was going to lose. And he said, go ahead and vote to release the files. So now the Republicans have changed their tune. And even though they were opposing the release of the files, they're pretending like it's not their position. Let's listen.
He finally changed his mind, and the Epstein file must be released. Moreover, if the president is serious about what he's saying, he's got the power to release the Epstein file right now. Nobody's stopping him. It's within his possession. It's within his control. He can release the whole thing, and he can redact the names of the victims and others who are innocent in this process. Mr. Speaker, Speaker Johnson said that these are unspeakable evils. Well, because of the bravery and the invincible courage of the women who've joined us today, they're no longer unspeakable. They're spoken. They're articulated. The cat is out of the bag, and we know what's been going on for decades. It's been a double standard of justice, going all the way back to Alex Acosta, who later got rewarded with a cabinet appointment in the Trump administration. Alex Acosta had a 60-count federal indictment ready to go against all kinds of people for an interstate sex trafficking conspiracy with solicitation, with child sex abuse, all of it. And he traded that 60-count federal indictment for 1 count in state court. And Jeffrey Epstein ended up getting the sweetest of sweetheart deals ever on the plea bargain front. He was free from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to do whatever he wanted, and continuing to perpetrate his crimes and run his conspiracy, and then he would come and he would watch TV and spend the night in jail. And it was over in about a year after the rape and sexual abuse of hundreds and hundreds of girls, and he kept going, and he kept at it. We want the whole truth to come out. This is the United States of America. Even the British monarchy wouldn't put up with this. How about the American democracy? How about we say, no way, we're not going to allow this cover-up to go on for one day more. And I'm glad the president changed his mind after pulling out all the stops to try to get one of our Republican colleagues to change their mind, to remove their name from the discharge petition. He gave up. And I want to salute the gentlelady from Colorado from having the courage to stand her ground in the Situation Room in the White House and say, no, she wasn't going to be bullied. No. So I'm glad the president changed his mind. But let's be clear, Mr. President, you've got the power today to release the entire file. That's what you called for. That's what Pam Bondi called for. That's what Kash Patel called for. So we don't need anybody calling for the Senate to slow things down for more weeks and more months. The American people have had it. We'll reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman is reminded to direct your
All right,
comments
I'm going to
to the
just chime in
chair
here
of
real
the
quick.
House.
So, a couple things. One, one of the main issues that is causing some consternation to me right now is this. There's a claim by Republicans that the current version of the bill would not protect the name of victims. Here's the actual bill. This is actually a summary of it, I believe. Or no, is this the entire bill? But either way, just kind of looking at it, this is directly from the congress.gov website, our official website. It says under this bill, it would disclose all unclassified records, documents, investigative materials related to Epstein and Maxwell. Blah, 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 blah. Then, in addition to that, it says if there is a victim personally identified information, child sex abuse materials, images of death, physical abuse or injury, or information that would just jeopardize an ongoing federal investigation or classified information, the DOJ can withhold or redact portions of the record. So basically, the DOJ gets to keep out the stuff that the Republicans are complaining the current bill doesn't do. They're basically lying. I just read it to you. So that is one just problem with the current argument by Republicans. Another argument is, the Republicans claim, oh, we were always for this. We were always for releasing the Epstein Files. But if you, one of the arguments the Democrats are making in response to that is, one, Donald Trump himself could just release the file. He's the possessor of the files right now. And two, basically that in addition to that this has been sitting there for 10 months or whatever it's been, and it's only now when they got 4 Republicans and every single Democrat to form the required 218 votes to pass the discharge petition, and so their claim to be in favor of releasing the discharge petition falls on deaf ears because they spent 10 months not doing it. Now, one last point real quick, and I'll return to the speech here, is that it's very clear what the Republican strategy is. They are arguing in the House, they're teeing this up, they're arguing that there's not enough protections for victims, and so they urge the Senate to amend the bill. And what that is going to do is it's going to slow the process down. They're probably going to amend it so dramatically that it will have the effect of not requiring the Epstein files to come out at all, or, in any significant way than they already have. And thus, it will water this down so much that it'll protect Trump and his obvious complicity. He's obviously a pedophile who's in the Epstein files. So that's their strategy. They're going to try to kick this to the Senate for an amendment, and we'll see if they get away with it. But let me turn this back up for now.
And to support victims. His Doge destroyed programs to combat international human trafficking rings. Let's get back on the side of the women. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker Johnson said it right. Why now after 4 years of doing nothing? because going after President Trump is an obsession with these guys. Best example is John Brennan testified in front of our committee under oath, said he was not involved with the dossier. Only problem is Tulsi Gabbard declassified a report, released that report, and it said exactly the opposite. And she related a story in there where a CIA official went up to Mr. Brennan and said, we shouldn't include this in the report. And John Brennan's response was, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? Forget the facts, forget the truth, go after Trump, put it in. Same dynamic at work here. We're all for protecting innocent victims. We're all for exposing the bad guys who did bad things. But this is an obsession with the left. For 10 years, it's going after President Trump. So vote yes. Make sure the bad guys are held accountable. We all want to do that. Speaker Johnson's right. I think it's going to be unanimous. But understand what they're doing, because they had 4 years and didn't do a darn thing. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 4405? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without
Can I request a
objection,
recorded vote, Mr. Speaker?
the gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yeah, I'm requesting a recorded vote.
The gentleman from Maryland has requested a recorded vote. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on the motion to suspend the rules will be followed by 5-minute votes on ordering the previous question on House Resolution 879, adoption of House Resolution 879 if ordered, and adoption of House Resolution 878. This is a 15-minute vote.
Okay, so with that, and we'll watch the numbers as they come in, but this should be unanimous. I think, if anything, maybe 1 or 2 Republican votes no. But this will be pretty quick, and this will be pretty unanimous. So let me just bring everybody back up to speed about sort of the history or the timeline of the Epstein Files saga. Now, Jeffrey Epstein, of course, everybody knows, was a wealthy financier dude from New York who had a house in Palm Springs, or where is it? Palm Beach, Florida. And this is the same town, of course, where Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort is located. Jeffrey Epstein abused numerous, dozens, if not hundreds, of children during his time there and in New York. He also filmed it and probably caused a lot of other people he was associated with to get up to similar bad behavior, and possibly as some sort of effort to get them implicated so that he could have blackmail. Now, we know a bunch of these people, but the one that's relevant for today's purposes is Donald Trump. Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were best friends in the 90s. They were really good friends. They went to each other's weddings. They called each other all the time. They frequently hung out together. There's just dozens of pictures of them together, including some creepy ones that are already available. And then what happened was, in about 2011 or 12, I can't remember the year, Jeffrey Epstein gets indicted in court. I think it was the state court one at first. Let me just look this up. We'll just go ahead and do this. The first one here is, this is so there was the state court investigation, and then that led to a federal investigation as well. And then Julie Brown from the Miami Herald has subsequently reported on this, and she's definitely the best source here. But so in 2006, state court, there was a unlawful sex with minors and 1 count of sexual abuse, and he did get arrested on that, and he pled it.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company.
What the hell?
They're one of America's largest
sorry.
financial.
Yeah, he had Alan Dershowitz defend him, who's a fucking just disgraced lawyer, and Ken Starr, also a disgraced lawyer. And of course, Ken Starr and him, they were in emails together. he's also disgraced. Anyway, so in 06, this state court was happening, and then the feds got involved, and Alex Acosta, who ended up going on to be Trump's labor secretary, had a 60-count indictment ready to go to escalate this to a federal deal. It was started out in state court. It is now being escalated to federal court with 60 counts. But because of the skeezy scumbag racist Alan Dershowitz, Acosta agreed to a plea deal, which was a non-prosecution agreement and a grant of immunity from all federal criminal charges, along with 4 co-conspirators and any unnamed potential co-conspirators. So this happened. This was basically a sweetheart deal. He did 6 months in a very low security jail, or 18 months, I'm sorry. But he got to leave during the day and come back at night. He was friends with all the guards, etc., and he basically got privileges, kind of like what Ghislaine Maxwell is getting now. So anyway, after he pleaded guilty to that, 18 months, let's see. Yeah, so after the first 3 months, he was allowed to leave for up to 12 hours a day. And yeah, then he finished up the sentence, basically. And then, yeah, he was, his door was left unlocked. He had access to the attorney room where a television was installed. And then he was moved to the infirmary. So, like, this is just really creepy stuff. He's being treated like a person who's being given privileges, even though he's a sex offender. And so then, after that, 13 of his 18 months get served. He gets early release. And, yeah, that was it. That was in 09. And then on probation until 2010. Then, after that, he lives in relative, obscurity for a while. And then, and let me just check on the numbers here. This is still taking a while. Okay, so then after all that, he basically is continuing to, he's continuing to, interact with high-profile people. This includes a lot of people like, physicists and business leaders and presidents and prime ministers and princes. And we'll talk about some of these people in a minute. But anyway, in 2019, I guess the French opened an investigation into him for pedophilia. And then, let's see here. Well, I guess that was, he was arrested. Oh, okay, so it was in France, and he was returning from France, and he was arrested at the airport on federal charges of sex trafficking during 2002 to 2005, etc., including allegations that underage females were involved. So let's just take a look at this indictment just quick. This is 2019 again in SDNY. Okay. Abused dozens of minor girls in his homes in Manhattan, New York, Palm Beach, Florida, and other locations. And it just goes through that period of time of that 3 years. And so this is the federal sex trafficking indictment. And again, this is the reason they could do this is that I think these crimes were discovered after this non-prosecution agreement from before. And then, they searched his townhouse, they found all these pictures and videos, and all right, so etc. So then, as we all know, he was later found in his jail cell dead. And oh, here, hold on real quick. Regarding the non-prosecution agreement from before, Judge Mara was to decide whether the prior non-prosecution agreement protected Epstein from the more serious charges would still stand. And then, yeah, basically, yeah, he was denied bond, and let's see here. And then by July, this is before they decided whether the non-prosecution agreement was going to hold up. He was found injured and semi-conscious with marks around his neck. Yeah, so his roommate denied having knowledge of what happened. This is his cell when they found him dead. Crazy. Anyway, so a lot of people speculate that he was killed or something, but who knows? In any event, that's the basic layout of the Epstein case generally. So far, no votes on this. Then, let me just Google this. If you were to go and look up on the internet, you can find so much, but I'm sure this will be a fairly coherent one. This is going to, first of all, I love how this Wikipedia page starts out with just fucking the biggest friend and connected person he has, Donald Trump. What is this? This is some part of a file, it looks like. Anyway, Donald Trump was clearly a huge friend of Epstein and probably the most connected person to him. Obviously, Ghislaine Maxwell, who's currently in prison, was his former girlfriend and co-conspirator in the sex crimes. But let me continue. Yeah, I guess this is just an article about a supposed list existing. But if you were to look at any article, you would probably find names like Prince Andrew, and you would probably find, you definitely find Trump. You often, people say Bill Clinton, people say Bill Gates, people, Larry Summers. There's Clinton there. Yeah, so there's just a whole bunch of people connected to him. Now, if you stop there, I mean, that's one thing, but the idea that after 2019, when he died, by the way, when he died, Trump was the president and Bill Barr was the attorney general. And Bill Barr was caught lying under oath numerous times, so anything he has to say on the issue is a little bit suspect. He obviously has reason to lie. And Donald Trump absolutely had reason to kill Epstein. He is a pedophile who's on Jeffrey Epstein's client list and who went to Epstein Island many times and who also attended many parties with Jeffrey Epstein with underage girls present. So Donald Trump has every incentive to kill him because he was a witness who could verify that Donald Trump was a pedophile. But in any event, what happened next was after Trump loses the election in 2020, Joe Biden comes in from 2021 to 2025. During that period, there were active criminal cases still going, most notably that against Ghislaine Maxwell. By the way, fun fact, just Ghislaine Maxwell, can I just take a quick aside? I'm not a huge conspiratorial person at all, but I do find it interesting. I do find this one interesting. That Robert Maxwell, her father, was a Mossad agent. Okay, let's just so the British Foreign Intelligence suspected him of being a Mossad agent. He was that family was British. but and then these allegations have been repeated in numerous places, and it's not just something people throw out. It's pretty well documented. There's like a lot of weird stuff going on with the embassy, and yeah, let's see here. So I'm just going to tell you, he was absolutely a Mossad agent. You can read about it yourself, but I just find it really interesting that the father of Ghislaine Maxwell was in the Mossad. I don't know to what extent Jeffrey Epstein himself had connections. I think it's possible that because Ehud Barak, a former prime minister of Israel, was Epstein's friend, and like showed Epstein like secret military information and stuff. But it's really important to just kind of be aware of this background. I don't really think it's possible to prove one way or the other whether Epstein himself was in the Mossad, but it's very clear that his girlfriend's father was. So anyway, Ghislaine Maxwell, what was I looking up? I can't remember. She is basically was his girlfriend in the 80s and 90s, and then kind of transitioned into his sex abuse co-conspirator. Oh, also Alan Dershowitz was definitely an Epstein friend and frequent visitor to Little St. James, which is the island where he did all of this abuse. Okay, so anyway, oh yeah, so yeah, there was a civil lawsuit against her in 2015 by Virginia Giuffre, and then there was another victim sued her in 2017. Maria Farmer, 2019. I mean, the list of people go on against her and the Epstein estate, and then they couldn't find her for a while. In 2019, they were looking for her. They couldn't find her. She was finally arrested in New Hampshire using a oh, interesting. They used a weird cell phone tracing device. Yeah, that's kind of creepy, but I'm glad they found her. Anyway, so they found her, they arrested her, blah blah blah, and so like she was on the lam for like, what is this, July of 2020, December. So it was like 6 months, 7 months she stayed out of range of the FBI, which is crazy. So this is 2020. So this is late Trump. She is arrested in late Trump administration 2020. Then by she's indicted, blah blah blah. Case proceeds, and by the time Biden gets sworn in, the case is starting to pick up steam. And the original trial date was July 2021. They upped the charges in March. And then they delayed the trial till November 2021. And then on December 29th, she was convicted. So this is about a year into the Biden administration. She's convicted. And then she goes ahead and appeals. I mean, in June of 2022, she's sentenced to prison. So that's, 1.5 years into the Biden administration. Then she appealed in July of that year, 2022. Her appeal was pending that the entire rest of the Biden administration. In April 2025, there was a petition to the Supreme Court to hear the appeal. And then she met with Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's personal attorney, who was appointed to the deputy attorney general position. Very unusual thing. Then a new filing in the case was submitted, and then on the 6th of October, the Supreme Court declined to hear her appeal. So her case is finally final as of just about a month ago, October 6th. Now, the question is, why didn't the Biden administration release the Epstein Files? And the first thing to note about that is to simply say that, one, she wasn't convicted and sentenced until June of 2022. So for at least the first year and a half of the Biden administration, her case was active at the trial level. Then one could argue that even on appeal, the case was still active, which again isn't up until last month. However, in my opinion, I don't believe that's a good enough excuse. I think that the Biden administration should have begun the process of releasing at least part of the file after her conviction became final, other than the appeal, in summer of 2022. I believe that would have been a much better outcome for everybody involved. And this thing is passing with flying colors for sure. Way over a 2/3 majority in case there's a veto by Trump. So that's going to pass. I'll come back to that in just a minute. But anyway, I think that Merrick Garland was very slow and very proper. He was like a really bad attorney general. Merrick Garland was a horrible attorney general. And I said so online. He basically, he basically said that, he wasn't going to go after Donald Trump for anything. He thought that it was improper to investigate a former president. But eventually he had to, because the evidence clearly showed Donald Trump tried to do a coup. But then, he was sitting on these files because his general preference is this, not to release criminal information. Now that works if you're talking about some run-of-the-mill fraud case or something. But in a case like this, where the public is interested and where justice would actually be better served by knowing the full extent of the crimes involved, they should have released the files, but they didn't. That was Merrick Garland's fault and Joe Biden's fault for not firing him. So absolutely, at least for 2 years, the Biden administration was slow in releasing the file. Now, they did support some things. I mean, they certainly supported the prosecution of Maxwell. They supported punishing her and her co-conspirators, and they were certainly working on other investigations. In fact, do you know who prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell? Here's a fun fact. Let me just do a Control F on this. I gotta look up the name, but it's not James Comey. Don't worry. It's her It's his daughter, Maureen Comey. Harvard Law School, blah blah blah, and here we are. She was a assistant U.S. attorney, and she began handling the Epstein case herself, with a team. Let me be clear. And then she was later involved in the prosecution of Ghislaine Maxwell. So, and then she was fired by Donald Trump. So the reality is that, and she's the daughter of a Republican now. Jim Comey was a Republican, but it's just very clear that the Trump administration has been trying to fight this tooth and nail. They've been opposing any effort to get the files released. And if you contrast that, the Biden administration, at least, although slow and protective about it as it pertains to active criminal investigations, were nevertheless supporting prosecuting the co-conspirators, had the full prosecutorial team in place, didn't fire anybody, didn't try to block votes, didn't pull anybody in the Situation Room to stop it from coming out. And the calls on the right to release the files had a kernel of truth, but were mostly about winning an election. And so eventually, when Trump takes power, he could have released the Epstein Files on day one. He didn't. He then engaged in a 10-month interference campaign to try to prevent their release. And finally, now that the appeal is final, I mean, he could still release them today, as the people in this debate stated. And we're about to get a call here from the House chair. But he is not. He has, in fact, engineered a strategy now because he is a pedophile who is in these files. Absolutely, there's going to be evidence of him engaging in pedophilia. And one Republican has voted no. I'm curious who that is. It might be a procedural thing to allow the motion to reconsider. We'll see. But meanwhile, I think, yeah, if you contrast what the Biden administration did, slow and methodical, but transparent and generally predisposed to disclosure of information related to Epstein, versus Trump, which was aggressively running interference to prevent the release of the files. It's very clear which side was more in favor and which side was less in favor of releasing the files. In fact, only 4 Republicans signed the discharge petition. Let me go back to this. Okay, this is the signatures for the discharge petition. Thomas Massie, Republican. In fact, I'll just prove this to you. Okay, there are 4 Republicans on this discharge petition. Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's it. Okay, 4 Republicans, which would mean 214 Democrats. Okay, so that tells you a lot. Then, even though the Republicans know they lost, and so they all have to vote for it now, that's just posturing, because they spent 10 months trying to block the release of the Epstein file. Moreover, whatever their claimed concerns about protecting innocent victims, despite what I read to you earlier, the text that said they can redact based on the victim's information and, unpleasant material about them. Despite all that, the Republicans still were opposed to this until 3 days ago when Donald Trump knew he was going to lose and changed his mind, because that's how he rolls. He knows if he's going to lose, he's going to pretend to have always been for it, even though he'd spent 10 months aggressively blocking it. Now, the victims themselves, the survivors of the sexual abuse, have come out and said they wanted the House to vote in favor of releasing the files. They did several press conferences with Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna and all these people. And finally, they're getting what they've always asked for. But again, and I'm going to end the stream when this vote is done, but just one other reminder. This goes to the Senate now. It is definitely a good step, but the Republican strategy has failed in the House. The Republican strategy in the House was to prevent the discharge petition from having enough votes. That's why Donald Trump brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room. Top officials in President Trump's Trump's administration met with Lauren Boebert in the Situation on Wednesday morning to discuss blah blah blah. And she just said, I guess I'm a pretty high profile. Why do you go to the Situation Room? It's to block electronic recordings and to be as private as possible. They wanted to browbeat Lauren Boebert to not pass the thing. Here we go.
On this vote, the yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Okay, there it is. So yeah, this is a big deal, and yeah, I figured there'd be applause. I have a paid YouTube account. I'm on my other account right now. By the way, just a real quick plug. I have a YouTube channel called The Trans Tipping Point. It's at The Trans Tipping Point.
Pursuant to Clause 8, Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on ordering the previous question on House Resolution 879, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Calendar Number 47, House Resolution 879.
Okay, so that's done. But just to kind of give you an idea, this is my YouTube channel. I'm going to be starting a blog, or not a blog. What do they call it? Fuck, a podcast. Sorry, that's such an old reference. It was Representative Clay Higgins. Let's look at this guy. This is the one guy that voted against releasing the Epstein files. What a reputation to go down as. Yeah, he's far right. House Freedom Caucus. let's see. Well, I don't know. Doesn't have it yet. Oh, yeah. Here it is. It's already on Wikipedia. God bless. Okay. So, fun. Anyway, just to real quick finish this topic and conclude the stream. But basically, so when this whole thing started, the Republican strategy was let's just line up and try to convince people to not vote for the discharge petition. This was, and the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he could have brought up this vote anytime he wanted. He could have brought this to the House anytime he wanted. But the reason that it had to go through a discharge petition was because Johnson wouldn't bring it up. And so, because of that, they had to go around him. They used this procedure called a discharge petition. So their first strategy, don't bring it up. Second strategy, prevent Republicans from signing the discharge petition. There were already 4. Every single Democrat in the House signed it. And of course, then their strategy switched to shutting the government down to prevent the last signer, Adrelita Grijalva, from being sworn in. They blocked Adrelita Grijalva. Let me show you this. They blocked her from being sworn in for, hold on one second, delayed swearing in. There's even a Wikipedia article about her delayed swearing in. But it was delayed by 50 days. They blocked it for 50. They didn't sign this lady into being a congressperson for 50 days after election. Now, most of the time, it's like 4 or 5 days. And so, yeah, this was another aspect of the obfuscation, the attempt to delay this discharge petition receiving the necessary 218th vote. Then their strategy was to schedule the vote and let it pass. But now their strategy is to try to amend it in the Senate so that it lacks any teeth. Now this, I don't know if this is going to fail or not in the Senate, but we will see. All I know is that Donald Trump is desperate to let this come out, and thus he is doing everything he possibly can to prevent it from coming out. And the whole and let me just kind of explain this, this is kind of going back to basics here, but let me just explain this for folks. A bill is introduced. Look, the Schoolhouse Rock comes up. Is there I wish I had a visual, but this is not very good. Well, I guess I could. Here we go. Okay, so this is how a bill in the United States becomes a law. The bill is introduced. There can be committee hearings or whatever, but eventually it has to go to the floor, and it gets passed. Okay, that's where we're at now. Floor action, passage. Then it goes to the other house, where they can look at it and then decide to pass it themselves. Oh, sorry, hold on. Let me retell you. Bill's introduced, goes through committee, goes to the floor, passes. That's in one house. Then it goes to the other house. The committees can look at it, but then they have to pass it too. If they amend it, if it's passed without amendments, it goes directly to in this case, the president. But if it's passed with amendments, it goes back to the original house that has to ratify those amendments. Then the executive has to sign it if it's not vetoed. All right, that's basically, and I think that's California or something. Similar as we see here. I mean, you can look at this anywhere, but that's the basic process. So, and everybody should know that. But yeah, so they have to go to the Senate now, and the question is whether they're going to have amendments. If the Senate amends it, then it has to go back to the House for final passage. That there's no guarantee that'll happen, because there might be a fight between which version of the bill is going to go through. If they do amend it, I suspect the amendments will probably be designed to water it down. And let me just tell you this. Republicans, I'm going to just signal amending Epstein bill in Senate. Yeah, here it is. Mike Johnson detailed what he called the serious deficiencies in the bill and said the Senate Republicans would amend it before it becomes law. So, yeah, and this is part of this effort to quickly coalesce behind the Epstein bill after Trump backs it, which was done after he knew he was going to lose. Donald Trump is a pedophile. By the way, Jim Jordan, also a pedophile. Or a pedophile enabler, for whatever it's worth. Here we go. Jim Jordan, or as we call him, GYM Jordan. Let's see, where is his controversies? Okay. Ohio State University began an independent investigation into allegations of sexual misconduct by Strauss, who was their wrestling team physician. The report concluded that Strauss had committed sexual abuse against 177 patients. And, okay. Jordan surely knew of Strauss's criminal misconduct but did not report it. And by the way, Jordan was the assistant coach at the time. And all the, tons of victims in this investigation stated that Jordan knew of the misconduct but did not report it. So, again, just to be clear, Jim Jordan may not be a pedophile, but he absolutely was somebody who helped cover up a athlete sex abuse ring. Okay. So anyway, he was the one leading the charge, ironically, to originally to block the petition, but then to pass it. And yeah, and this all, by the way, I forgot to mention. Last week, when they were about to have to swear in Adjulita Grijalva, they also started leaking emails about Epstein, several of which implicate Trump and clearly suggest that Trump was involved with some kind of child sex abuse at Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach resort, or his mansion, I mean. Okay, so that is what's happening with Republicans. Now, last thing I want to do on today's stream is I want to go back and I want to just play a couple of the floor speeches and maybe react to a couple of them. They already happened, but we'll go ahead and
those favoring a recorded vote will.
We'll go ahead and play that. Sorry about that. And let me just close out of some of these here. Okay. So this was the
helping veterans
Associated Press stream here.
November 18th, 2025. I hereby appoint the Honorable David J. Taylor to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 3rd, 2025, the Chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hours.
Or takes advantage to prevent.
Sometimes we get into the
1,280 can't buy a house. Can't.
Record of decision. Section 3. In the House, the banking minority.
On the
and on any further amendment thereto to final
okay,
passage
so this was
without intervening motion except
actual
one.
floor debate
1 hour
starting
of
here,
debate equally divided and controlled
2.5
by the
hours
chair
ago. You can go
and
you can go watch it yourself.
Oversight and
but
government reform,
there's a couple of speeches I wanted to play.
One motion to
transmission of a message to the
This
Senate
is this Virginia Fox, I think.
Passed H.R. 4405. Mr. Speaker, after over 40 days of the Democrat government shutdown, the House has returned to regular order, and this majority is continuing to push forward with the America First agenda, the American people's.
The America First agenda is such a joke. They voted to get, Donald Trump gave hundreds of $millions to Argentina. We continue to supply Israel with billions of dollars in weapons to murder children and commit genocide. They continue to destroy the American economy. They're not America First.
Agenda. These, all of these pieces of legislation we're considering today are in alignment with the American people's demand and President Trump's executive orders that we maintain a robust posture of American energy dominance. You know, Mr.
Okay,
Speaker,
I'm going to skip ahead. I don't know if that's what that's about.
For the American people. Thank you. I yield back. I don't know. That doesn't pass the smell test. Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Khanna.
Okay, here we go.
Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
This was the Democratic leader on the discharge petition.
Leadership over
Let's
the
listen
last
to
5
Ro
months
Khanna.
to make sure that this bill came to the floor. Thank you also to Don Sisson for his leadership and understanding of all the rules to make this possible. Now, as we are here today, I saw on CNN that the president is meeting with the Saudi prince. You know what America First means to me? How about meeting with the survivors? How about making sure that America's girls are not being raped? That's what it means to be America First, not going and just meeting with Saudi princes. You know, I am so honored to be here and working together with Congressman Thomas Massie, who's shown so much courage and principle, and I'm so honored to be here next to Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and Congresswoman Nancy Mace. I was telling someone, they said, what did you learn through this process? I said, sometimes we have to see people not just through their caricature. And I had caricatures of Representative Greene and Representative Massey and Representative Mace. But what I saw is they cared as Americans and human beings, and they stood with courage. And they looked at this not from politics, they looked at this as what is right. And I'm proud today to be a member of Congress. I'm proud to work with them, and I'm proud of what we are showing this country is possible. That if we actually care about American values, maybe we can overcome some of the bitter divides in this country. If we don't care about just getting the credit and maybe work together, we could actually care about forgotten and abandoned Americans like the survivors that testified today. I was so moved by their testimony. How can you hear their testimony, as all of us have heard, see their tears, see them holding up photos at the age of 14, and think that they're not telling the truth? This is not politics, this is humanity. Sometimes we get into these chambers and we forget what happened, of how we grew up. Most of us, we grew up, we went to barbecue, we went to Little League games, we went to church or temple. We didn't fly around in private jets and go to a rape island. We didn't buy off politicians and tell them to keep quiet. We didn't think that it was normal to abuse or rape young girls. And then they're saying, well, we don't know if they were 18 or 22. Come on, it's rotten. Then they say, well, just care about the price of eggs, just care about the price of health care. You know what's more important than that? American values. These rich, greedy men abused American values. They abused what's sacred about this country. They abused what built this country.
I yield the gentleman additional minute.
And it is time that they're going to have a reckoning.
At Primrose Schools, teachers use Peanut the Pony to model honesty.
You read a book about me and honesty at school?
I will fix this problem in the future. I will stream from my YouTube account that doesn't have that problem. I'll use a different computer to monitor the channel that doesn't have premium. I wish I could switch my premium
amazing things can happen
my newer
because
channel,
the American people are kind and good and decent. So it's an honor, Congressman Massey, to have worked with you. And I salute particularly the courage of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Nancy Mace. None of this would have been possible without their courage in standing up on the petition and for what they did. I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts reserves. Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, at the top of this page that I have, I've written Democrat hypocrisy on Epstein. That's what we're hearing today. I'm proud to be a member of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. I'm proud to have supported the full investigation into the Epstein Files on that committee. Furthermore, I'm proud to have supported formalizing that investigation by taking the decisive step in directing that investigation by a special rule provided by the Rules Committee. This gave the oversight investigation the full weight of the House of Representatives behind the committee's existing subpoena power. Very important in this debate. Let's get things straight here. In just a matter of hours, we're going to get to vote on the Massey bill. But that won't preclude the existing House Oversight and Government Reform Committee's investigation in any way. And that's a great thing because that investigation is yielding results. We now know that one of Jeffrey Epstein's closest confidants was apparently Larry Summers, a cabinet member in the Clinton administration. We now know that a Democrat member in this body, Stacey Plaskett, was colluding with Jeffrey Epstein in real time during a hearing. And the subject matter? How to take down President Trump. Mr. Speaker, you can't make this stuff up. We now know that Epstein himself hated President Trump. It's in black and white. We now know that one of the chief Epstein victims stated that President Trump never acted inappropriately. And don't forget that oversight investigation specifically subpoenaed Bill and Hillary Clinton for their ties to Jeffrey Epstein. They haven't been quick to step into the breach and exonerate themselves, have they? But the truth will continue to come out as it has because of Republicans and a current Republican-led House Oversight and Government Reform Committee investigation, one that already carries the full force of law. Let's see where that leads. I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the gentlelady says that just trust her and the Republican leadership. And I got to tell you, I can't. After what I saw unfold over these last several months. Obstruction and using every maneuver possible to avoid this moment where we're having here today. And I want to say that for the record, it doesn't matter whether there's Republicans or Democrats or independents that are implicated in these files. We believe in accountability for everybody who abuses young women. And we believe in justice. And that is kind of what's uniting many of us on this on this side of the aisle here today.
And I want to stop here for just a second. First of all, Virginia Woolf's statements that, first of all, it's the Republicans that brought us to this day, and secondly, that the Democrats have been hypocritical, falls on deaf ears. It's such a bullshit argument. First of all, they spent 10 months blocking this. She didn't sign the discharge petition. She, and I find it so disgusting, honestly. This is about some people who are abused. It's about some victims of very serious crimes. And rather than just say, yeah, we should, release the files, Virginia Woolf is up there saying, oh, the Democrats didn't act with the proper, the equal to both sides. They were hypocritical. And first of all, as you just heard this guy, I can't remember his name, say, Democrats don't care who's in the files. They just want to release him. A. B, it's such a ridiculous, I'm going to get rid of that. It's such a ridiculous thing to argue about, which committee gets the files released or whether or not some other person from years ago is also implicated in the file to make it seem like Trump isn't. Trump is absolutely in the file. I mean, he is, absolutely, there's emails that put him at Jeffrey Epstein's place. There's emails that put him there with some of the known victims. There are numerous other things. There's the birthday card book, and then there's all the pictures, and then there's the issue with Donald Trump running into the screen door because he was too busy looking at young girls in bikinis. I mean, the reality is that Donald Trump's fingerprints are all over the Epstein files, and he's been working for 10 months to block it. And it's driving me crazy that some people are now saying that he supports their release. Looks like we're going to go. Let's hear from Brad Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Representative Connor for his leadership. I want to thank Representative Massey, Representative Greene, and Representative Mace for their courage and for their willingness to stand up for what is right. We don't agree on very much, but we do agree that there ought to be accountability when young women are abused, and so that's what this is about. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the gentleman from Kentucky Mr. Massey control the remainder of my time.
Without objection. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, may I inquire as to how much time I have?
You have 17 minutes remaining.
I yield myself 2 minutes.
Gentleman is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, today's an extraordinary day in this chamber. If my colleagues will vote for this measure, we'll see justice triumph over politics. Truth will triumph over deception and obfuscation. Transparency will triumph over dark money. Partisanship will fall way to bipartisanship. Grassroots, the people, will reclaim the people's house with this vote. It's going to be a victory for survivors, not just survivors of the Epstein sex trafficking scandal, the 1,000 survivors that exist. Some of them are victims. They're no longer alive. Some have committed suicide. They share one thing in common. Their youth was robbed from them. Much of their lives were robbed from them, but they're claiming it back. We're going to help them claim that back. But it's not just a victory today, if this vote prevails for those survivors. It's a victory for every person, man or woman, boy or girl, who's been victimized sexually in this country. Anybody who's been a victim of sexual assault, or maybe they've been victimized by a family member. Maybe it's not a billionaire, but they're all waiting and watching to see what we do today. They're wondering, if I go to mom or dad, will anything happen? If I go to the sheriff, will anything happen? Well, we have a chance today to make something happen, something that's not happened, something that should have happened decades ago, and that is to get justice for these victims and survivors and transparency for America. That's what this vote is about today. And I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I now yield 5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Georgia, Mrs. Green.
Here we go.
Gentlelady from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I proudly rise today in a bipartisan effort.
One thing that makes me resent the Republicans a little bit right now, or at least Donald Trump even more than I already do, is the fact that, like, he has created this weird situation with strange bedfellows who are causing some dramatic realignments in the American political system. I find myself more and more agreeing with this batshit crazy woman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, not to mention Thomas Massey and Lauren Boebert, and it is driving me kind of crazy. But I have to say, I have to give them credit. They are absolutely acting for an unusual moment in the interest of the American people, and I support that. So here we go. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
To release the Epstein Files, finally, after 5 administrations have covered it up. Earlier today, I attended the press conference where the survivors, they're not victims, the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse and sex trafficking told their stories. And they told stories about how it started back in 1991, 1996, and they continued on through the decades. And they told stories about how they told someone and tried to get help. They told the FBI, and they weren't listened to. And they told law enforcement, and no one did anything. And these women don't just number a few. These women number around 1,000 women. And they are victims of something that's unthinkable. And this should have never, ever happened. This was the biggest fight I think I've seen in Washington, D.C. This is my 5th year here. And this was a fight that we should have never had to wage. It should have been the easiest thing for every single member of Congress. It should have been the easiest thing for the Speaker of the House. It should have been the easiest thing for the President of the United States to release all the information, every single file, on behalf of these American women. These American women aren't rich, powerful elites. They do not have someone paying for their airline tickets or paying for their trips or paying for their expenses every time they try to do something to get this information out. These are your average Americans. And you want to know what the Epstein Files represent, the cover-up represents to average Americans? It represents the failures of the federal government and Congress to the American people. And that is what people rose up about in 2024. They wanted and demanded transparency from their government and for Americans finally to be put first. And today, with this vote, we are finally putting these victims and these survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and the cabal of rich, powerful elites that expands not just here in the United States of America, but to other countries as well. We're putting them last. And that is exactly what Americans want. You see, for far too long, Americans have been put last. And they're sick of it. They're sick and tired of it. And this is why they don't trust Congress. This is why they don't trust the government. And here's the problem. All of these women who have suffered in shame for years and years and years, women who were terrified, women who were intimidated, women who were threatened, just like Virginia Giuffre. And now she's dead. And these women should have never faced that, for this information to come out. And we, especially the 4 Republican members of the House of Representatives, we should have never faced intimidation and threats for us to get this vote to come to the floor. Never forget, there were 4. Thomas Massie, myself, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. We had to sign a discharge petition, and we had to fight through intimidation, and we had to endure it for months to push that discharge petition finally to 218 to get this vote to come out. This is what the American people are sick of, and rightfully so. Now, where does this go from here? The question will remain, will the Department of Justice release all the information? Will a judge in New York release the information? Will the CIA release the information? And will foreign governments release their information? Or will this continue after this vote today be a cover-up of the rich, powerful elites that bond together in sex and human trafficking abuse and all types of global business that enriches them but never serves America?
Sorry, hold on.
Why do we do it?
Yeah, so again, I don't think I really disagree with anything that Marjorie Taylor Greene has said so far, and it is kind of crazy that that is the case, but what are you going to do? And I like her point just now about how there were only 4, and she wants people to remember that. There were only 4 brave Republicans who stood up for the right thing today.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I yield myself a minute.
There were 4. Thomas Massie, myself, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. We had to sign a discharge petition, and we had to fight through intimidation, and we had to endure it for months to push that discharge petition finally to 218 to get this vote to come out. This is what the American people are sick of, and rightfully so. Now, where does this go from here? The question will remain, will the Department of Justice release all the information? Will a judge in New York release the information? Will the CIA release the information? And will foreign governments release their information? Or will this continue after this vote today be a cover-up of the rich, powerful elites that bond together in sex and human trafficking abuse and all types of global business that enriches them but never serves Americans? The American people will know, and the victims, actually the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, will know because they know the list of names. And I remain dedicated to my promise to read those names here on the House floor if those women ever find them in a place that it needs to be done. I yield back to Mr.
Gentlelady
Massey.
from Georgia yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky
Quite a bit of
reserves.
bravery.
Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
And honestly, admirable commitment to doing something right
Gentlelady reserves.
by
Gentleman
Marjorie
from
Taylor
Kentucky
Greene,
is
I have to say.
recognized.
I yield myself a minute and 30 seconds.
Gentleman's recognized for a minute.
I want to thank the generosity of Jim McGovern, Representative McGovern, for granting us this time. I'm embarrassed for my own party today. I'm embarrassed we withheld signing in, swearing in a duly representative of the people for 49 days just to avoid this vote that's finally going to happen today. I'm embarrassed that my own party isn't going to yield me time to debate this, even though they say they support it and I authored it. They don't even want to yield me time to debate this during the bill debate.
Wow.
But I'm thankful.
That's crazy. You know, I didn't realize that they all voted for it, as we know. I already played the vote, but the actual person advocating for the thing they just voted for, they didn't even give him time to speak. That's unheard of. That is how bad that Trump wants this to not be out there.
Let me tell you who I'm thankful to. These three brave women, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert, they have been threatened. They have been intimidated. Physically, politically, it's disgusting. And not by the far left. They have been intimidated by people in our own party. And for what? For seeking justice for these victims. So my hat's off. I congratulate them for standing strong. I've always wondered, where were the Republican men during this battle? We've taken 5 months. These three women and I have had to drag our party to this floor today to even vote on this. And Ro Khanna is the most to be thanked here. In an extraordinary display of bipartisanship, he did not hesitate when I asked if we wanted to bring this bill to the floor together, if he would stand in the trenches with me. He said yes. With that, I reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from North
Truly
Carolina
extraordinary.
is recognized.
They didn't give him time to speak. Not a single damn Republican man helped vote for him.
Gentlelady's recognized.
Boy, we need to get
God,
facts straight.
hold on. I got it. Let me just one second here. I am pretty sure I know why. I think I see what's going on here. One second. I just gotta look at this real quick. Okay, here we go. What do you think? Let's just get this smaller here. Oh shoot. Yeah, we'll get this in a small little window and we'll bring it over. Sorry, I kind of ruined the surprise, but it's just, oh, where is it here? What do you think? Huh? Are we, think they're the same family? I kind of think we're on the same page. Okay, sorry, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Here, President Trump's DOJ, in his first term, arrested and prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein. We, on our side, want justice to prevail in this case and in every case. Speaker Johnson has always been clear that if the discharge petition reached the necessary signatures, that the House would consider the legislation, and that's what we're providing for in our rule today. In fact, as soon as the petition hit...
She's very boring and very bad at arguing this, so let's skip to the next one.
Lady reserves. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I'm guessing this would be Nancy Mace, who's
I'd
by
like to
far
now
of the four
recognize
people.
the gentlelady from South Carolina for 5 minutes, Nancy Mace.
Yeah, she's the craziest.
Gentlelady
of
from
the four.
South Carolina is
Which
recognized
saying
for 5
something.
minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank my colleagues today for the time, Mr. McGovern and Mr. Khanna, for the 5 minutes on the floor to speak about an issue that is not political for me. Helping the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and his horrific, gruesome, brutal sex trafficking ring is deeply personal. And while we often have many disagreements about a lot of issues, maybe most issues, Today, they are allowing us to speak on the floor, and I want to thank my colleagues, Congressman Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert, the four of us making history today over the discharge petition and delivering justice for those who have desperately fought for it for, in some cases, almost 30 years. I wore white today because I wanted to reflect on the innocence of the young women who had their innocence stolen from a demon named Jeffrey Epstein, from demons, friends of his, rich and powerful people who stole their innocence as young as 14 years old. It was taken from them, and they've never gotten it back. I'm also wearing white today to recognize the courage that it takes for women to come forward, the sacrifices to them personally, professionally, financially, the embarrassment, the humiliation, the shame that we still deliver on the backs of women who have been brutalized, who've been raped, who've been assaulted. The shame that the media pours over their heads, that their colleagues, their friends, their neighbors, their loved ones, because you come forward and because you talk about sexual assault, you are not a slut. It's not because of what you wore. You're not a whore. But that's how women are treated, and you're not lying. And I want every woman to know, every Epstein survivor to know, every woman across the country who is a survivor, who is a victim of assault, that today, we see you. And this fight and this vote tonight, I see it is about the Epstein victims, but it's about much more than the Epstein victims. This is about the powerless, taking power away from the very powerful. This is about giving women who never had a voice, giving a voice to the voiceless. This is about their sacrifice. This is about having and recognizing their courage. This is about justice for the Epstein victims, but it's also about hope. Earlier this year, I gave a speech right here on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, detailing trauma that I experienced, endured, and am a survivor of, that I accidentally uncovered 2 years ago, almost to the day. And today, I still don't have justice, like millions of women across the country. When I spoke out, I got attacked. When I spoke out, I was shamed. When I spoke out, I was defamed and smeared, and that goes on today, right now, in the present. God sure has a funny way of working through us. I, like many of the Epstein survivors and many other survivors across the country, I don't think I will ever heal from the destruction my abuser did to me. But I can heal by being a vessel and being a voice for all those who need it, and that's why we are here today. That is why I will never abandon a single survivor ever, and I will never waver. I spent my morning talking to law enforcement and others about another potential Jane Doe number 5, who may be another sexual assault victim in the case that I uncovered 2 years ago. It's very difficult for us to come forward, but I want to thank the women who have, the Epstein victims, the victims in the case that I uncovered. I want to thank all of you for being a voice, for giving me hope. Maybe one day I too can get justice. Thank you, and I yield.
The lady yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Hers was by far the least persuasive. I think that she made it all about herself, and, you know, not to disparage, I don't really know what she's on about in terms of her personal situation, but today's not about her. It's about the Epstein victims, so I wish, you know, she kind of came off as a little unhinged, but the others have been good. Let's get to
Reserves. Gentlelady from North Carolina.
All and end all mentioned in the underlying legislation, former U.S. attorney, and others. Let me state again, the unanimous consent request to pass the legislation immediately
doesn't protect victims. Well, if that is so, why were dozens of victims with us today at a press conference urging this body to pass this legislation? It's because this legislation specifically protects victims. They've said that
it's well known at Ellipsis that kids are at the center of every decision that we make.
We're a voice support. Of course it does. We have a specific provision in our legislation to prevent that. They've said so many falsehoods about this legislation, but now they're going to vote for it, hopefully enthusiastically. But really, they've been drugged to this. Our judicial system is broken. If it were working, there wouldn't be 1,000 victims who haven't seen justice yet. They are victims of the Epstein class. I begrudge nobody success that they become a billionaire. But if you think being a billionaire or buying politicians keeps you out of the judicial system, lets you rape young women, lets you traffic women, you've got another thing coming when this bill passes. Do not let the Senate muck this up. There have already been efforts to derail this, our discharge petition. The Oversight Committee has released thousands, tens of thousands of documents. That's fine. Keep working. How many names have you released? 0. You are still protecting, or the DOJ is protecting, pedophiles and sex traffickers. The time for that to stop is now. Now, our speaker says, oh, this bill needs amended in the Senate, and specifically, he's trying to create a loophole. He's trying to categorize the pedophiles as victims. He's saying, oh, we don't embarrass the people that went to the rape island. We should protect those names against unreliable accusations. Is he calling all of these victims unreliable? They've testified to the FBI. The FBI has these names in their possession. I asked the FBI director in a hearing, have you looked at the documents? No, he trusts everybody that's been there for decades. That is wrong. Do not let the Senate muck this bill up. And if you're a party to that in the Senate, you are part of this cover-up that we are trying to expose. I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island. That is what they have coming. In fact, they need to be on the other side of bars, a lot of them. Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men in handcuffs being perp-walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up. I urge my Senate colleagues, do not muck up this bill. The president has already said he will sign it. That means he will sign the bill that we have here today. Do not change this bill. He is ready to sign it. Give it to him. Put it on his desk. Let's get justice for these victims. With that, I reserve.
Well, a couple things. First of all, shout out to his staffer, who's clearly, one of the many twinks in the Congress. Second, it's always weird when the twinks work for Republicans. It's, George Santos had quite a few too. Anyway, secondly, don't disagree with anything he said. In fact, I love the phrase, it's about time we saw rich billionaires go into jail in handcuffs. I think that's one of the most bipartisan things. Whichever party leans into that sentiment more, the better they're going to do.
The gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Reserve.
The gentlelady reserves.
Is the gentlelady prepared to close?
Yes, I am, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I yield the remainder of my time to Ranking Member Mr. McGovern.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you. First, let me say how much I admire the courage of my Republican colleagues who are beside me here today. Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, this is not about us, and it's not about politics.
Okay. So I don't find McGovern very persuasive or convincing. Okay, so what happens next is
Gentleman from Ohio seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 4405.
So what happened was, this was in the Oversight Committee, and they were debating this bill in that committee. But now the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, who I had talked about earlier, is standing up to raise a motion to suspend the rules, which is basically a way of doing this Epstein vote without going through the previous committee, but rather doing it directly. And that way they have a little bit more control over who speaks and how much time there is.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Jordan, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Ohio.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and to insert extraneous material on H.R. 4405.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
We all support holding bad guys accountable. And we're all going to vote for this.
You don't. You covered up a athlete sex abuse scandal at Ohio State University, you dumbass. Like, how do they choose the one guy that literally covered up a previous sex abuse ring to then pretend to be in favor of uncovering this one? That's insane. That's a wild choice.
Resolution. But I think a little perspective is important. This Arctic Frost investigation at the Justice Department surveilling United States Senate. And then let's get focused on making sure we're doing what the American families elected us to do.
Skipping ahead.
With that, I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Today, 4 months and 3 days after Mr. Khanna and Mr. Massey introduced their discharge petition, perhaps the most famous discharge petition in American history, the People's House unites across party lines to draw
and this is
a
about
moral
where I started
line.
watching.
We draw.
And Raskin's good, but it doesn't get quite as... I'll show you a couple spicy bits as this goes on. He gives a fairly reasonable, fairly nonpartisan
The gentleman
kind of
from
speech.
Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 4 minutes to the distinguished chair of the House Oversight Committee, Mr. Comer, and the gentleman from Kentucky.
Oh, it wasn't the Oversight
Gentleman
Committee.
from Kentucky is
It was some other committee
recognized.
earlier, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As chairman of the House Oversight Committee, I've always believed that sunshine is the best disinfectant. For years, the American people, 65,000 pages of documents, issued 13 subpoenas, hoax, instead of pursuing just fewer than 1 dozen. In their latest selective leak, Democrats released just 3.
Yeah. So now they're criticizing the Democrats for leaking some materials that they've received during their own investigation without subpoena power. And he's like, oh, you didn't release everything. It's like, well, you're blocking everything, you dumbass.
3 of the 23,000 pages of documents from the Epstein estate. And they made redactions to 2 of those emails that changed both the context and the meaning of.
They redacted the name of one of the accusers. And the reason the Republicans are claiming this is an issue is because it's Virginia Giuffre, was the accuser who wrote in a book, I think it was maybe 2014 or so, that she personally didn't think Trump did anything wrong. But bear in mind that this was before a lot of things came out, and it was while she was subject to a great deal of pressure to kind of stick to the party line. So it's not clear if that statement is reliable, but even if it is, that doesn't mean she knows everything. There could have been other victims. And she was alone with Trump, and probably, she was underage and alone with Trump at Epstein's place. I mean, that's just creepy. And so the idea of protecting her identity is a legitimate idea. The idea that they redacted it to prevent people from talking about her subsequent, semi-exonerate statement is silly.
The 3 pages they released. When CNN called them out for their deceptive redactions, Representatives Stansbury and Crockett tried to blame Republicans for their own edits, for the Democrat Oversight Committee edits. After Democrats released only 3 emails, Republicans released over 23,000 pages. And what did Democrats say in response when we released every single document that we got? They claimed full transparency was meant to, quote, disorient or distract from their manufactured narrative.
It's true that the Democratic release of emails was only a few. I mean, it's been numerous over the months, but the most recent one was just 3. There were 3 really compelling emails, one of which put Trump on Epstein Island, or, like, let me just, I'll pull it up. Okay. So again, just kind of start out, Trump pictured here with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and I believe, is that Virginia Giuffre? I don't know who that is, but it might be one of the former victims, or I'm not sure. But anyway, here's one email, and this is from Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him, and this is probably Virginia Giuffre. He has never once been mentioned, so hours at my house. So this puts Trump in the room, in the house with Jeffrey Epstein while he was doing his sex ring for hours with an underage victim. I mean, even if she subsequently gave a quote-unquote exonerating statement, I don't trust it. I mean, at the very least, Trump needs to admit he was there and explain what happened, at the very least. Okay, second one. And Jeffrey Epstein was never a member of Mar-a-Lago, so Trump never did ask him to resign. Of course, he knew about the girls, as he asked Ghislaine to stop. So, and Ghislaine to stop is a reference to Ghislaine stealing Epstein, or Trump's employees to go work for Epstein, or to go over to Epstein. Now, the third one is this is about a debate where Trump was supposed to be asked about Epstein, and he didn't. He ended up not getting asked. So, like, the first one is what I wanted to show, though. That's the one that places Trump right there at the Epstein house for hours with one of the victims. Now, the second one's good, too. Trump never asked Epstein to resign. He was never a member. And, of course, he knew about the girls. So, just kind of give you an idea. Okay, anyway, that's what the Democrats released.
These are the same Democrats who chant...
Taking the name out was the right thing to do, honestly.
Release the files every day until the files contradict the story they want to tell.
Okay.
Speaking here, and I'd like to yield 1 minute to the Democrats. What truth?
Epstein to an event.
God damn it.
A house is just a house until you make it yours.
2013 effort to win a majority. So Hakeem Jeffrey's campaign solicited money from Jeffrey Epstein. That's what we found in the last document batch. The files underscore why former President...
I'm okay throwing Hakeem Jeffries under the bus.
President Trump must appear for his deposition. We've subpoenaed him. To date, the Democrats have done nothing to help us secure his appearance. I support full transparency. The Oversight Committee will continue to work to get the truth to the American people and to get justice for the victims. That's our goal of this investigation. With that, I yield back.
Okay, here we go. This is when it gets
spicy. Mr. Speaker, we reserve. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should just point out that we've heard now from the 2 distinguished chairmen of the Judiciary and the Oversight Committee, and they've spoken almost exclusively to denounce Democrats. We have a bipartisan coalition here demanding the truth about the largest child sex abuse and trafficking ring, perhaps in American history, certainly in this century, and they want to just throw stones at the Democrats. What a remarkable failure of leadership we're seeing from the other side, and I imagine that the chairman of the Oversight Committee will follow up his spectacular failure in trying to impeach President Biden with his spectacular failure in trying to block the resolution we brought to the floor today. I'm happy to yield 1 minute. Excuse me, you're not recognized, whoever's speaking. And I'd like to yield 1 minute to the very distinguished minority leader on the House Oversight Committee.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. And Mr. Speaker, it's wonderful to hear Republicans and certainly the chairman of our committee finally wanting transparency on this issue. It is time to end this White House cover-up now. Now, we know that Donald Trump has tried everything to kill our Jeffrey Epstein investigation, and he's failed. And now he's panicking. He's about to lose his Epstein vote to force the Department of Justice to release the files. And let's be crystal clear. Trump has the power to release the files today. He does not even need a vote. And he continues to defy the subpoena of the Oversight Committee to release all the files. What is Donald Trump hiding? What is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, hiding? Why won't they release the Epstein files right now? And he must explain to the public why he moved sex trafficker and monster Ghislaine Maxwell to a cushy, low-security prison after her interview with Trump's personal lawyer. He should declare, and every Republican should say, that she does not deserve a pardon or a commutation.
The gentleman's time has expired.
30 more seconds. I grant him 20 more seconds. We don't care how much money you have, what party you're in, how powerful you are. We should get justice for the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein. And our work on the committee is not over. Next up are the bank and financial records to follow and expose Epstein's network. Today, there should be a unanimous vote on releasing the files, and we will get justice. And with that, I yield back. And we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield a minute and a half to the distinguished gentleman from California and member of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Kiley.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
This guy's annoying. I already listened to him. I mean, I'll give you a taste.
I have consistently called for the maximum possible level of transparency when it comes to the heinous crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. That's why I've consistently said I am inclined to vote for this bill.
God, I am inclined to vote for this bill. What a dumbass. I want to get back
this over with.
Raskin.
I yield back.
The gentleman yields
has
back.
These great little retort.
The gentleman reserves.
Yeah, we reserve.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to the very distinguished gentlelady from Washington, a member of the Judiciary Committee.
Really good.
The gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of girls, children, were abused by Jeffrey Epstein and his massive and powerful ring of pedophiles and protectors of pedophiles. We can't say all their names here. We don't have time. But let's at least bring a few of the courageous survivors and their names onto the House floor right here as we debate this. Haley Robson, Jenna Lisa Jones, Michelle Licata, Ashley Rubright, Annie Farmer, Marina Lacerda, Rachel Benavides. These women have carried a burden that they never should have had to bear. And today, they demand, we demand, the American people demand that we answer their clarion call to justice. Today, despite all the giant cover-up attempts by this administration and this Speaker of the House, we will vote to release all the Epstein files. To be clear, there is no protection for pedophiles, no protection for the rich and powerful men of either party who participated, who turned a blind eye, who winked and grinned while witnessing the horrific abuses of young children. Release all the damn files now.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield a minute and a half to the distinguished gentleman from North Carolina and member of our committee.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have been very supportive of this effort, specifically to bring justice to the victims.
You were not. You did not sign the discharge petition, you lying sack of shit. Like, this is astonishing. Republican after Republican gets up there, claims that they supported releasing the Epstein files all along, but they were instrumental in Donald Trump's campaign to prevent their release. This guy included.
Of this horrific series of crimes. However, I have worked behind the scenes to raise concerns with this petition as it is currently drafted. Specifically, I believe that there is grave risk at harming innocent people. And I repeat, harming innocent people. When innocent people are harmed, that is not furthering justice.
So he's, again, talking about covering the embarrassment of people that went to Epstein Island. I'm like, if you went there, explain yourself. Just say, I shouldn't have gone there. I thought it was interesting. It was a free flight, and I'm regretful that I went. And then deny that you did anything, and you'll be good.
of this petition. I resent the fact that there was not room for good faith amendments, and I urge the Senate to protect innocent people. I yield back.
Yields back. The gentleman reserves.
Again,
the gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
This is about the third or fourth time. Jim Jordan, and you'll hear later Mike Johnson, were all supporting the Senate acting to amend this bill.
Recognized.
Thank you. I'm yielding 1 minute to the distinguished gentlelady from California, Representative Kamlager-Dove.
The gentlelady from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, 1 in 3 women and girls around the world are physically and sexually assaulted each year. Of the 152 women in this body, that means 51 women. It includes your daughters, your sisters, your nieces, your mothers. And with the Epstein Files, we have a chance to change that. But real talk, the administration doesn't need a discharge petition. It has not complied with the subpoena, and it has the power to release the files today. Instead, the man in the most powerful position in the world has used the full weight of the government to block and obfuscate and deflect the full release of the files. It is the same person who intimidated female members of Congress to withdraw names from the petition, who responded quiet piggy to a female reporter who asked about the files, and who nominated an alleged sexual predator to be our AG. It is the same person whose name appears more than any other in the Epstein emails. And in the pantheon of violence, a sexual predator is the worst of the worst. So why protect him? It's also curious that the judiciary is managing this debate and has not even had this come before the committee. I wonder why. Release the files now.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, chairman of the Constitution Subcommittee.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Very,
I thank the chairman. Today, a united Republican Party and a bipartisan supermajority is going to pass a bill to increase transparency regarding the egregious abuses by Jeffrey Epstein, a goal that anyone of conscience desires.
Yeah, your entire party spent the last 10 months blocking it, you dumbass. You can't say that. Let me skip ahead.
Does the gentleman reserve?
Yeah, we reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yes, just very quickly, what happened under the Biden administration? Well, under the Biden administration, Ghislaine Maxwell was prosecuted for conspiring to sexually abuse and traffic girls in 2020. Right when it's in 2021, she was convicted. In December of 2021, after a month-long trial in Judge Nathan's courtroom, in 2022, Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison under the Biden administration for sex trafficking and sexual abuse of minors. But when President Trump took office in January of 2025, they killed the investigation. They assembled all the materials, they got all the prosecutors together, and they terminated the investigation. I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Raja Krishnamurthy.
The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Right, his is not
Thank you,
bad.
Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support to release the Epstein.
Recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California. 1.5 minutes to the gentleman from California.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I thank you, Chairman.
Skip that one too because it's
Let's
bad.
kid ourselves. It has to be changed so that it properly protects both the
Again, another
tradition
Republican
of
calling
the
for watering down
grand
the
jury
Epstein bill.
and clearly those innocent people that would
Another
otherwise be swept up.
Republican
And I yield
trying to-
back.
The gentleman's
Another
time has
Republican
expired.
trying
The
to
gentleman
water
yields
down
back.
the bill.
Reserve.
The gentleman
It's like
reserves.
the
The gentleman
fifth or
from
sixth
Maryland is
one now.
recognized.
This whole bill is about protecting the innocent. Mr. Speaker, the Senate must pass the bill as we are passing it today and as the President has said he would sign it after changing his position on the bill over the weekend when he could see the tidal wave of public opinion moving against him. Let's pass this bill, pass it in the Senate, sign the bill.
I'm not allowed to reveal the secrets of Jemison Blackburn.
Yeah, so again, the Democrats unanimously have supported releasing the Epstein Files since basically the beginning of the Congress. I mean, and they were talking about it, some of them before the Congress took office. Meanwhile, the Republicans have run a 10-month interference campaign to prevent them from being released and have only voted in favor of it now because it was inconvenient to oppose it.
Department of Justice to release the files today. He is choosing not to. They are already under subpoena, led by oversight Democrats, and have refused. This is an ongoing cover-up by the Trump White House, and Mike Johnson and the House has been complicit. What is Trump hiding? Why not release the files today?
From Arizona, Representative Ansari.
The gentlelady
I liked her. Sorry,
letter.
I just wanted to hear her.
Rape children or were enabling and complicit in these heinous crimes for decades. This vote today matters, but here is the truth. Donald Trump could direct the Department of Justice to release the files today. He is choosing not to. They are already under subpoena, led by oversight Democrats, and have refused. This is an ongoing cover-up by the Trump White House, and Mike Johnson and the House has been complicit. What is Trump hiding? Why not release the files today? This is a
Time has expired.
Release the files today. Thank you.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Van Drew.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Today I want to talk about hypocrisy. Let me be
Christ.
clear.
These guys don't even care about the issue. They just care about scoring political points. It's so obvious. It really sucks. It honestly really sucks.
I see as a group more focused on scoring political points and drama than on protecting abused children. The record is clear. Under Republicans, far more information has been released in the last 6 months than was done during all 4 years of the previous presidency under Joe Biden. We've actually been the party of transparency. We've released the information. We've told it hypocrisy.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
You know, I've never heard a more defensive presentation in my life than what we're hearing from over there. The gentleman should spend a little less time pointing out hypocrisy and a little more time trying to ferret out cruelty, humiliation, and rape. And that's what we're working on. I yield 30 seconds to the distinguished gentleman from California, Mr. Min.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
I want to remind you that we are all here voting on this bill because President Trump, who has the power to release the Epstein files at any time, has refused to do so, calling this a hoax. We're here because Speaker Mike Johnson and President Trump have gone to extraordinary lengths to try to kill and delay the discharge petition, including refusing to seat Adelita Grijalva for over 40 days and threatening House Republicans who signed on. Now, several of my Republican colleagues have accused those of us House Democrats who support justice here of having Trump derangement syndrome. You all suffer from something much worse, which is pedophile protection syndrome. Stop protecting pedophiles, release the Epstein files. The victims deserve justice. I yield back.
We reserve.
Members are reminded to direct their comments to the chair. The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
We reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio reserves. The gentleman from Maryland.
I'm yielding 30 seconds to my friend, Representative Walkinshaw from Virginia.
The gentleman is recognized.
For years, Mr. Speaker, we have watched dangerous conspiracies like Pizzagate and QAnon shape our political landscape. They help fuel the rise of President Trump and were built on baseless claims about secret pedophile rings, while the real documented case of child sex trafficking involving Jeffrey Epstein remains shrouded in secrecy because President Trump refuses to release the files. What is President Trump hiding? Why won't he release the files? The House finally has the opportunity to act, release the files, and let the American people see the truth. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Granting 30 seconds to the very distinguished gentlelady who is finally with us, Representative Adelita Grijalva from Arizona 7th.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to acknowledge the survivors, family members, and advocates who are here today and have never given up. The legislation in front of us, at its core, is about something very simple. The survivors deserve justice. The American people deserve the truth. To every survivor watching, your courage is inspiring. You are the reason why this vote is happening today. Protecting women and children from pedophiles should not be a Democratic issue, should not be a Republican issue. It should be a human rights issue and a matter of justice. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the Epstein Files Transparency Act. I yield back. Thank you.
Again, who just spoke, Adelita Grijalva, is the final person needed to sign the discharge petition to get this to even happen. the Republicans in the House, despite their claim to support this effort, and the fact that they voted overwhelmingly for it, spent 50 days not seating her in her duly elected seat in Congress just to prevent her from signing the discharge petition, thereby forcing this vote.
Thank you, and we reserve.
The chair will remind all persons in the gallery that they are here as guests of the House and that any manifestation of approval or disapproval of proceedings is in violation of the rules of the House.
Okay. Now, that was the Republican Speaker pro tempore who's filling in for Speaker Mike Johnson for this debate, just yelling at the Epstein victims who are sitting up in the gallery up here to not clap when somebody says releasing the files and doing justice by sex abuse victims is a human right and pursuant to justice. Those victims and survivors clapped, and they're being chastised by the Republican Speaker pro tempore.
The gentleman from Maryland.
Yeah, but I'll just add, they're here as honored guests of the House, and we're delighted they're here, and with that, we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Yeah, we reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland.
I'm granting 30 seconds to Representative Lois Frankel from Florida.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for far too long, the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse were failed by a justice system that minimized their suffering and prosecutors who treated young girls as if they were criminals. That was wrong, and I am here with my colleagues to promise this. We will get to the bottom of why the Epstein survivors were treated so badly, who made those decisions, and who were they protecting. No more secrecy, no more excuses. We all deserve the truth, and I thank the survivors for their courage and perseverance. Your voices are being heard.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman
we
reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentleman from the great state of Louisiana, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Mr.
The gentleman
Johnson.
from Louisiana is
All right,
recognized.
so this is
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chairman.
Minute. This is the Speaker gets to speak for as long as they want, regardless how much time they're given. Now I took up this broadcast right as he was, getting going. I don't feel the need to repeat much of it. I'll just repeat the first.
Gordon, for doing such an extraordinary job on all of this. For 43 long days, the Democrats held this House and the entire country hostage.
False. Republicans held the House hostage.
Finally, with the lights back on, this body's returning to our regular legislative session. We have a lot of work to do. My colleagues on this side of the chamber are ready and eager to get back to our urgent legislative work that we promised the American people we would do. We've got to continue lowering the cost of health care. We've got to bring down prices for American families, and we've got to finish the regular appropriations process, just to name a few of those priorities. And I wish I could say that our first order of business would be to get to those urgent priorities, but of course we're here spending time on the floor about something else. This is something we could have resolved last week when we brought a unanimous consent to pass this discharge with the full support of the body. But our friends over here who are arguing today stalled that. They objected to it, and they wanted to have this exercise instead. And that's why we say that this is a show vote. That's what this is. They're making a show of it. And
it's just utterly disgusting, Mike Johnson. You're claiming that the Democrats' desire to have a vote on the Epstein Files is a show. And the only reason you wanted to do this other procedure last week was to prevent it being recorded. You wanted to get members' names off of it. And rather than schedule a vote right then and there, which you could have done, you set it out about as far as you were legally able to till today. So fuck you for lying about that.
Really is a shame. We have some heroic women in the chamber today. I met with many of them a while back.
Your designated Speaker pro tempore just yelled at them for clapping.
They're in the gallery here. They have come forward. They have shown their faces. They've used their names to share the unspeakable tragedies that many of them were subjected to, some of them when they were very young. And it is a heroic service to the country. They are seeking justice, and the justice has been delayed for too long. The Department of Justice, many years ago, should have brought these charges. It took too long to do it. And now we're in this process.
Again, Trump's former labor secretary, Robert Acosta, covered up the Jeffrey Epstein prosecution by giving him a sweetheart deal in 2011 or whatever it was. So just there's no accountability for these people whatsoever.
Of making sure all the American people get the information, but we have to do it in the right way. Okay. After 4 years...
Yeah. He wants to do it the right way. He's very focused on doing it the right way. That's a bunch of bullshit, and we all know it. I mean, first of all, you've been blocking it for whatever reason for 10 months. That is not anything to do with the right way or the wrong way, and you have lifted no fingers to do it the, quote, right way. I don't know what you mean by right way. It's just insulting to the survivors to say that.
The Democrat control under President Biden, they were not truthful with us about a lot of things. The Democrats insisted the border was secure. We knew it wasn't.
Anyway, I'm going to skip ahead to Raskin, who's way more persuasive.
Gentleman
and then we'll
from
be
Ohio
done
has
for the day.
30 seconds.
Can I inquire how much time is remaining?
30 seconds. Six minutes, 15 seconds.
Take 30 his.
We reserve.
Gentleman reserved. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I'll take the opportunity of the Speaker's presence to respond to some of the things that he said. In the very presence of the victims and the survivors who come to join us today, the Speaker said that now would be a time we should be working on urgent legislative work. Mr. Speaker, justice is urgent legislative work. The truth is urgent legislative work. The Speaker says...
Yeah, that was a really a good point that he just made. It's so insulting to call getting justice for the survivors of the Epstein saga as not urgent. So insulting.
On the discharge petition. So why now? It was because of your dilatory tactics, your delay, your postponement of it. Now, the gentleman says that there are not sufficient protections. There are protections in the bill for the victims to make sure that their names will be redacted. And yet we hear even the Speaker of the House of Representatives openly inviting the U.S. Senate to start finger painting on this bill, which we have waited more than 5 months to bring to the floor.
Much of Mike Johnson's speech just now that I skipped ahead was him urging the Senate to water down the bill to protect Trump from justice in this matter.
The Senate should pass the bill exactly as it's written. The president should sign it exactly as he said he would when he finally changed his mind. And the Epstein file must be released. Moreover, if the president is serious about what he's saying, he's got the power to release the Epstein file right now. Nobody's stopping him. It's within his possession. It's within his control. He can release the whole thing, and he can redact the names of the victims and others who are innocent in this process. Mr. Speaker, Speaker Johnson said that these are unspeakable evils. Well, because of the bravery and the invincible courage of the women who've joined us today, they're no longer unspeakable. They're spoken. They're articulated. The cat is out of the bag, and we know what's been going on for decades. It's been a double standard of justice, going all the way back to Alex Acosta, who later got rewarded with a cabinet appointment in the Trump administration. Alex Acosta had a 60-count federal indictment ready to go against all kinds of people for an interstate sex trafficking conspiracy with solicitation, with child sex abuse, all of it. And he traded that 60-count federal indictment for 1 count in state court. And Jeffrey Epstein ended up getting the sweetest of sweetheart deals ever on the plea bargain front. He was free from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to do whatever he wanted and continuing to perpetrate his crimes and run his conspiracy, and then he would come and he would watch TV and spend the night in jail. And it was over in about a year after the rape and sexual abuse of hundreds and hundreds of girls, and he kept going and he kept at it. We want the whole truth to come out. This is the United States of America. Even the British monarchy wouldn't put up with this. How about the American democracy? How about we say, no way, we're not going to allow this cover-up to go on for 1 day more. And I'm glad the president changed his mind after pulling out all the stops to try to get one of our Republican colleagues to change their mind, to remove their name from the discharge petition, he gave up. And I want to salute the gentlelady from Colorado from having the courage to stand her ground in the Situation Room in the White House and say, no, she wasn't going to be bullied. No. So I'm glad the president changed his mind. But let's be clear, Mr. President, you've got the power today to release the entire file. That's what you called for. That's what Pam Bondi called for. That's what Kash Patel called for. So we don't need anybody calling for the Senate to slow things down for more weeks and more months. The American people have had it. We'll reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman is reminded to direct your comments to the chair and not your colleagues. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized, and you do have 90 seconds remaining. Gentleman from Ohio reserves. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Raskin a little bit more.
All right.
Here.
How much time do I have to close?
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank all of America for tuning in to this. I want to thank Representatives Massey and Khanna, Representative Green, all of those who have insisted upon bringing the truth forward and a reckoning with the reality of one of the worst international child sex trafficking rings ever to exist in the United States and the cover-up attendant to it. We've got the opportunity today to do justice for the victims, for the survivors who have come forward to say that the voice of the victims and the survivors must be put at the very center of our deliberations, not shunted off to the side, not submerged, not subordinated, but put at the very center. We must hear from the people who themselves were victimized by this nightmare. Now, our colleagues across the aisle seem to want to make this into some sort of partisan contest. I haven't heard so much talk about the Democrats since the Democratic National Convention. And all that we've done here is to say we want to bring the truth forward along with a bipartisan group. We don't want the Senate monkeying around with this in order to slow things down. We want it passed in the Senate. We want it signed. And before that, if the president is true to his word and he wants to see all of this come to light, he can release it now instead of fighting, kicking, and screaming every step along the way. But I'm glad he's changed his mind, and I hope he maintains the momentum he's got to stick with the vast majority of the American people who want to see that the truth is done here. And while he's at it, the administration could reconsider their terrible policies gutting federal offices and programs designed to combat violence against women. The DOJ terminated hundreds of grants to police departments, defunding the police when it comes to investigating violent sex crimes and to support victims. His DOJ destroyed programs to combat international human trafficking rings. Let's get back on the side of the women. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker Johnson said it right. Why now after 4 years of doing nothing? Because going after President Trump is an obsession with these guys. Best example is John Brennan testified in front of our committee under oath, said he was not involved with the dossier.
So I think that gives you a fair overview of this process. Again, just to summarize, Epstein killed himself allegedly, died under mysterious circumstances in 2019. Biden gets into office in 2021. Maxwell's convicted late 2021, sentenced in mid-2022. For 2.5 years thereafter, one could, the appeal was still pending. Merrick Garland was very slow, but the Biden administration generally supported prosecuting and continuing the investigation. There was still an active investigation into other conspirators, by the way. So releasing the files would go against DOJ policy typically, but I still believe it was a mistake for Garland not to have done some degree of public disclosure. Meanwhile, Trump gets elected and then comes in January 2025, almost immediately cuts off the investigation, almost immediately fires not immediately, a few months in, fires James Comey's daughter, who's one of the main prosecutors against Maxwell, gives Maxwell a sweetheart relocation to Club Fed, this very cushy prison, and then spends every month since he's been elected fighting tooth and nail to prevent the release of the Epstein Files, because he's in the files. He is a pedophile. Democrats in the committee released some emails. Republicans shut down the government and wouldn't reopen it. and during that time, they blocked the swearing in of Adjulita Grijalva. Once she gets sworn in, 218 people now, 4 Republicans, 214 Democrats, sign a discharge petition that forces the vote that's happening right now. The Republicans spent all of that time blocking it, and now some of them are complaining that the Democrats are going forward with it and pretending like they supported it all along. They are fucking liars. They fucking want to cover up the Epstein Files to keep Donald Trump in power. It's not going to work. They're going to lose. And their main tactic is now, since they lost on the House of Representatives, their main tactic now is to switch over to the United States Senate and try to bully the Senate into watering down the bill to lie and prevent the truth coming out about Donald Trump. That is all they care about, is political power and fucking people over and giving billionaires money. That's all these fucking people care about. And so thank you so much for tuning in today and for reviewing my coverage. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me and we'll go from there. Thanks for tuning in to the Trans Tipping Point.